In our third video of Module 3, we will be covering which tools to employ and the ideal frequency to scan for vulnerabilities. Scanning frequency is not a set-in-stone equation you can just pull out of a magic hat. You'll need to take several factors into consideration as you determine the best plan for you and your organization. Let's start with determining your risk appetite. Scanning costs money, so weighing the cost of scanning against the value of the assets being protected is going to be important. Obviously, you'll want to find the balance between cost and comfort level. One non-negotiable aspect is to ensure the company is scanning in a manner and per a schedule which abide by prescribed regulations of the specific company's type of business. Another potential constraint is technical in nature. While scanning a Windows system is relatively straightforward and inexpensive, you can run a scan every time a device connects to the network and regularly after a device disconnects from the network. Scanning other systems and applications for vulnerabilities is not necessarily as simple. In some cases, the process is extremely complicated and expensive, like owning a boat. Once it's determined proper security capabilities have been integrated, ensure vulnerability scanning integration occurs within any and all other IT workflows. Let's now discuss how we decide which tools are best suited for scanning and how to configure them to fit your needs. Look for applications which will help you establish your core scanning criteria. You should also look for and establish sensitivity levels to set how deep we want to scan, ones that come with a regularly updated vulnerability feed to keep you current with new vulnerabilities, and scan scope to set the number of hosts and subnets to scan in one go to avoid overburdening the system. Do you remember that time that your buddy had a backstage pass and had the time of his life? Yeah, that's the equivalent to a credentialed scan. When running a credentialed scan, you perform a scan by logging on to the application or operating system through a user account with log-on rights and appropriate test-specific permission. This type of scan runs much deeper than a non-credentialed scan. It can detect incorrect configurations in operating systems and applications, as well as indicate what a successful account attacker can do. Now, remember that general admission ticket you had? That's like running a non-credentialed scan or a remote scan, which is performed without the ability to access the operating system or application. This scan can only test what is accessible on the network without log-on rights or any level of privileged access. Non-credentialed scanning can require more bandwidth and be disruptive, sometimes even crashing the entire system. You did not see this approach used in Oceans 11, 12, 13, or any teen. There was a lot. Since a credentialed scan gives a scan administrator access to the data, if the data is highly sensitive in nature, an in-depth scan can be performed by using solutions which will enable a scanner to obtain credentials from an authorization server without disclosing the credentials to employees who operate the scan administration server. Another consideration as to the best tool is asking the question, do you want a built-in vulnerability scanner installed directly on the target system, known as an agent-based solution? Or is it better to scan from a centralized server? An agent-based application is capable of scanning the configuration on a server and reporting information about vulnerabilities. However, agents can affect server performance, which is why administrators are often hesitant to install them. If you wish to take the agent-based approach, it's a good idea to try a pilot installation. A pilot installation will allow testing the impact of server performance. A server-based agent scans devices from a centralized server. It's easy, it's faster to deploy, it's not resource hungry, and needs less maintenance, which sounds like a ton of good reasons to strongly consider this approach. Another important consideration when building that toolkit of apps and plugins is to ensure your tools incorporate the Security Content Automation Protocol, or SCAP, which is a method that integrates a number of open standards to enable automated configuration and vulnerability management. SCAP-compatible scanning software will be quite useful in determining whether your system complies with a predetermined configuration standard or not. Remember this name, the MITRE Corporation. These guys have developed some of the most important components of SCAP. This includes keeping an updated library of known vulnerabilities, configuration best practices, identifying IT systems and platforms that turn ambiguous terms into something you can understand, and a list of known software weaknesses developed by the community itself. Think of these guys as the white hats of the vulnerable systems out there. Apart from credentials to access an application, a vulnerability scanner must be configured to operate in tandem with other security controls. You need to ensure controls such as firewalls, IDS, and anti-malware solutions don't pose an obstacle to scanning. If they do, then exclusions need to be configured. This is also one of those moments where the right hand shouldn't know what the left hand is doing. Otherwise, you're just creating a new vulnerability. Keep your scan results confidential. Implement access controls to restrict those who have access to the results. The same security personnel should not manage both the permissions and access and the vulnerability scanning.